What is going on, YouTube? Northeast Ohio Sports Cards here. Today, I have a special guest. We are going to try to get I obviously wasn't able to go to Dallas, so I wanted to kind of get the vibe and the feel from the Dallas show. So I reached out to one of my fellow content creators, and we are going to talk to Hannah from SheCollectsCards, part of the dynamic duo of Women of the Hobby as well. So let's go ahead and bring her in really quick. What is going
Hey,
on this afternoon?
hey, Rob. Thanks for having me. Nothing much. Just recovering from the Dallas card show here, with some sleep and catching up on work as well. But how's it going?
Good, good. This was your first one, right?
Yeah, it was. So it was very overwhelming, to say the least. I'm a bit of an introvert, so recovering from all the crazy crowd and the conversations that I had over the weekend, and trying to edit videos as well. So it's been quite a long weekend, I would say.
That's an introvert with a YouTube channel is definitely an interesting
Yeah.
interesting life choice. I get it though. I get it. I get it. It's just you alone in a room, so there's no one watching in
And
theory.
it's a way to get out of that, just being comfortable by myself as well. So self-development.
Yeah. Yeah. Good learning opportunity. So,
Yes.
I mean, obviously there's been a lot of chatter coming out of Dallas already the last, I mean, during the show and since the show's kind of in the post show now, but whether we like it or not, Dallas seems to set the tone right now for kind of the direction of the market and the hobby, at least in the short term, for at least a few weeks. At least it has in the past, the last couple shows. The was it the Jordan LeBron hype came out of the one in
Right.
January, and then what was it? The last one was it Brady? It wasn't Brady. Who came out of that? Who was the big one out of the
Kevin
last?
Durant, I think, came out of
Yes,
the last
Durant was the
one.
big one out of the last one.
Mhm.
That's right. So you were there, obviously. So what would you say was either like the product? Let's start here. Let's start here first. What was the product of the show?
I mean, so I'll give 2 main ones from my perspective, and perhaps some people got a different perspective on this, but I was there full day Saturday and full day on Sunday, and that's the extent of my take here. I would say actually, football, or some really highly sought after cards, especially, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, like those big names, because there was a general consensus that football has hit its rock bottom, and with the season starting soon, I think there were some good buys that were available that people were looking for. But one thing to note is people weren't willing to pay over comp, over what was sold last on eBay or Golden, but they were mainly looking for 80%, 90% of comp, both from a vendor and buyer side. So that was like kind of like the mainstream look, I think. And then like Deshaun Watson, like some of the, gambly plays for sure.
Yeah,
But in terms of
pass.
like the yeah, minor stream, and so if we go back one Dallas card show ago, it was certainly Kevin Durant in the mainstream, and in the minor stream, it was certainly soccer, in my opinion, with the UEFA League coming up, and then Euro Cup coming up. Soccer was definitely heating up in the last Dallas card show, but I would say in this one, it was more so focused around UFC and F1. I would say, and
Yes.
UFC has seen that rise, I think, a couple weeks ago, like maybe 3-4 weeks ago, with the hobby box just booming in price value. But F1 was something that I saw, like, just physically just being just scraped out like entirely by vendor table, and a lot of people getting involved, finding out about those cards for the first time at the show, not having known about, hey, I didn't know that Topps Chrome produced F1, and we would be educating them, saying this is actually their first year doing it, and these are some of the chase cards, and they were just flying like hotcakes. And I was actually trying to buy some F1 hobby boxes, Topps Chrome hobby boxes there, but it was all gone by Thursday. So that's, I think, a testament of how much, like, it's heating up right now. And it didn't like, there was a race on Sunday, I believe,
Hmm.
where Max Verstappen just, killed it at the top. Unfortunate for Lewis, where he didn't perform well on the qualifier, but I think that also kind of helped with F1 being really hot over the weekend.
So, and I know nothing about F1. I mean, I know what F1 is, but like, a driver could walk in my house right now and I wouldn't know who he was. Uh, do you think that that's, your best guess? Do you think that that's real, or do you think that's just people looking to like try to jump on the next thing before it gets too crazy to make their quick buck? Like, I don't want to compare it to like, is this the next NBA Top Shot like type situation where it's like everyone dives in to like get in on the ground level, make their flip, and then next thing you know, in like 3 months, people are like, remember when that F1 was a thing? Or do you think this is like are people legit like, man, let me get some of them F1 cards for like long term holds?
Yeah, those are very, very dramatic examples. But I would say it's somewhere in the middle, actually, in between NBA Top Shot hype train, and maybe compare it to like soccer. And I
Mm,
know that there's a lot of crowd out there who still believe that soccer is a bubble, but I don't think so because of the general audience that that industry attracts, and the money that that sport has already makes me believe that it's not just a hype. So here's my take on F1, Rob, is it's the most expensive sport out there, right? If you look at top 10, top 20 highest paid players, athletes in the world, you will see F1 players over any NFL or NBA player. And so money is definitely there. And when you think about the general crowd um, who is attracted to that sport, it's actually mostly outside of us. It's Middle East. So think oil, people, and a lot of Europeans, right? And the only connection that needs to be made before F1 truly blows up is those people want to collect a tangible collectible of their favorite player. Right now, they're throwing money at whether it's giving money to the race teams or attending those race shows, which cost tens of thousands of dollars to attend. And these events typically take place in one of the most expensive cities in the world. So money is not an issue, but it's really the connecting part of like, hey, if you can own a signed, patch card of Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen, how much are you willing to pay for that? And when money is not an issue, and it's just a number, like it really is going to be a smooth transition if that interest hikes up. And that's one reason why I feel like F1 has a lot of potential. And the second reason why I like F1 right now is it's actually worth breaking the box, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
for
for sure.
basketball right now, you pay $1,300, which I think is significantly dropped from initial 2020 Basketball Prism hobby box, which I think was at 2,500 at one point. It's at $1,300, but even if you break right now and you pull a LaMelo base, which is a great hit, right? It's like pulling a Zion base a year ago or a year and a half ago. You still cannot break even, right? Even if you pull the best card. And let's not talk about like the parallels and like,
Mm.
autos, because those are just ratio wise, it's total gamble. But with a Topps Chrome, or Topps Chrome Sapphire for F1, if you hit a Lewis Hamilton right now, the raw card is going for $400, $500. You get it graded, gets a PSA 10, it's $2,000 for a base raw like Lewis Hamilton card. And so that gives me like some sort of certainty that it is still a good time to get in. Like the whole play of like break and get them graded and sell it for a quick profit is still like valid for F1, right? So that's why it's not, matured yet. So whoever gets in right now, it's an early adopter situation. And so you can definitely see some profit if that's the route you want to take where you break, you know, and you grade it and then you flip it. So yeah, that's
Look, I would have to imagine since this is the first year that they've done it, I would think that the print run's probably small, or in
very
in relative terms to like an NBA or like select football or something like that. And I'd also
absolutely.
have to imagine, I mean, like I said, I'm not super familiar with F1. I'm a little familiar with NASCAR, but I have to imagine it's a smaller checklist. There's only so many drivers, right?
Yeah, there's only 20 drivers that are relevant, right? So it's a very small checklist, and each driver at let's say Lewis Hamilton, he was at the top for. I mean, he still is at the top, but 6, 7 years, and then there's a rotation of like perhaps Max Verstappen is going to be the next one, and where he will reign for 6, 7 years. So it's a very small like number of relevant players, which I think is actually helpful because your ratio of hitting a good player is like very, very good. It's on your it's good for people who are breaking, I think, compared to
Interesting.
basketball draft classes. I don't even know, like 80, 90 players. So
I wonder as a breaker, like breaking, like as a, like a running a break on that product, how you would do it because you don't. Would you go by like teams like for the type of car that they drive, like Mercedes or whatever? Like I said, I'm not super familiar with F1, but like I wonder how you would break a product like that, or since the checklist is so small, if you would just have an individual driver.
yeah, I think so. I think you would just have maybe like 2 tier or 3 tiers of just players, making sure that everyone has like the top 10 players in their tier, and then do a break that way. I actually haven't seen a break being done. What I meant by break was break it yourself for like
Yeah,
personal
yeah.
break.
No, I know what you were saying, but like the general like running a break kind of drives,
Sure,
in my mind, drives a lot of the market. So I would be curious how you like
that's
a
true.
breaker, not me or you sitting at home in our office breaking it for ourselves, but like how a legit breaker would like break that product to an audience on Instagram or
Right.
YouTube or whatever.
Like a pack break would work too, right?
That's true. Or
Something
you do
like
like a
that.
draft or so. There's ways you could probably do it, but that's with
For
it
sure.
not having a team or divisions or anything like that, that gets kind of weird.
Yeah.
So would like okay, so that was obvious. F sounds like F1 and UFC and was kind of like the winner product of the show. Was there an actual? Because I really haven't heard one to this point. Maybe I missed it. Is there like an actual player of the show so far, other than just kind of like people trying to consolidate into whatever the top one or two players of the given sport are?
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of where we are right now is we're like just before NBA playoffs, which is like the pinnacle of basketball collective. We're in football off season. Soccer is at an awkward spot where they have one final game left. That's happening on 29th of May. Then after that, the Euros is happening. So they're kind of like in a off season ish as well. So I think in baseball, already kind of the your gamble players have already played out, like, are they gonna, make it or not? So we were definitely at an awkward spot, I would say. So, like, even, like, Kawhi's I didn't see move very much, and even, like, Luka Doncic, even though, the Mavs had an upset game, I would say, in that first game of the series, the day after, his cards didn't really go up either, so, yeah, I can't pinpoint, like, one player specifically, but if I had to pick one, I would say it was Tom Brady. I saw more Tom Brady cards being rotated than most of the other players. But I don't think it's like a surprise, right? Because, top 1, 2 player of any sport should be moving well, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And he would be the one viewing it from afar, checking IG every few hours and watching all the different content creators send their stuff out. Brady did seem like not quite as heavy as like KD was last show and LeBron and Jordan
Right.
were the previous one, but his name did seem to be bubbling towards the top
Mhm.
more. So the other
Exactly.
big thing that everyone's been hearing and kind of everyone's been talking about this, but I'm curious for your perspective on it. It seems like at least on the buyer side, like someone walking around the show, that people really weren't, at least the majority weren't super willing to inject cash into the market. It seemed like everyone was like, oh, I'll do, whatever, this plus a certain percentage of cash. But no one was just like, okay, I'll give you 20K for a LeBron Topps Chrome PSA 10. It was like, I'll give you this stuff that's like 15K and then I'll toss in 5K in cash or like stuff like that. Is that the same vibe you got just kind of walking around for the 2 days you were there?
Yeah, certainly, and I would include myself in that crowd as well, and kind of be in that market. And when I think about the psychology of a buyer right now, and most of us who are at the Dallas Card Show, we're very aware of what's happening in the market, right? And for example, the LeBron Topps Chrome, the first day I was there, the deals were being made at where the dealers would buy for 21, sell it for 23, buy for 20, sell for 22, 22 and a half. Those were the numbers. And the second day I go in, people are buying it for 19.5, people are buying for 19, and they're selling for 21. So it was kind of going down by the hour of the show, which is
It's
scary.
crazy.
Which is scary. Like it's tangible, right, at that point. And Golden was like ending around the same time, and people were gauging that. And then there were a couple eBay auctions that were happening. People were gauging that. So it was just really dropping by the hour. And so in that kind of environment, the natural response, right, as someone invested into this is, hey, I'm not going to put in more money than I have already done. So if my card is depreciating in value as we speak, that's something that I cannot control. But what can I control is how much more cash I inject into this, right? So, like we talked about earlier, a lot of the sentiment was shared within the community of people who were at the show is naturally, hey, I'm not going to put in more money than I already have. So let's do a trade. So I still want the excitement of like rotating my cards, getting new cards and stuff like that. So let's do some kind of, trade deals more so than, oh my God, $19,000. That's so cheap compared to what it was 2 months ago. Let me go all my cash into it. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. Um, if you are bullish that this was the bottom of the market, and if it turns out to be, you came out definitely on top with a lot of good deals at 60%, 70% of comp, I would say. But I honestly haven't seen, even on the dealer side, who've made big bets because there was just so much uncertainty and fear in general of where the market was going. And now it doesn't help that a lot of these investors or collectors are also into alternative assets like cryptocurrency, and Ethereum and Bitcoin were both crashing by the hour we were there. And I think Ethereum kind of recovered a little bit, but you saw some people who were accepting like Ether or Bitcoin, but those signs were gone real quick, like by the second day.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
Like what was
So
dropping faster, Bitcoin or LeBron
exactly,
Chromes?
neck to neck, I would say. But yeah,
So
it's just a scary time, I would say.
that's from an attendee perspective, like that seems fine. Like I walk in with my case of cards, maybe a little bit of cash, shuffle some cards around for the day, and I can walk out of that and be like, okay, cool. Like, good times, this, great, had a good day. I wonder from a vendor perspective though, like you go to set up at this show
Yeah,
and you're expecting to sell stuff. Yeah, sure, like bringing in new inventory is probably fun and all, but like I don't know, you close up shop at the end of the day, Sunday, and you like look at your spreadsheet or whatever, and you go, okay, I made a bunch of trades, but I only netted out like, I don't know, maybe a few $1,000s, and flight out there, hotels, food, whatever. I don't know what, I've never been a vendor, so I don't, I can't speak too much to that side, but I wonder from a vendor perspective, like how they're feeling right now,
yeah.
with just the current state of the world that we're in market wise.
Yeah. I mean, if this was your, main source of income and main primary way you put food on the table, I'm going to be scared. And hopefully they have hedged enough and they have made the right decisions in the last 6 months with the gains that they have seen, to support, even in the downtimes. But certainly some of the vendors I was talking to, for example, like on Sunday, which was the last day, and that's typically when vendors want to just kind of get rid of inventory as well. So you get to this kind of mutual understanding that, hey, like come back in 2 hours, and if it's still here, I'll give it to you for $500 less, $700 less. Like you do get that feeling a little bit. And they might have picked that card up for a lot cheaper on Friday. So they're okay, losing this unrealized gain a little bit. And even in that conversation, some of the vendors were just being very upfront with me, telling me, "Hey, I really want like your card as a trade for my card." But I'll be very honest with you. I've only made 4 or 5 deals like so far with cash, and so I'm very low on cash. So I cannot give you cash. So the general sentiment that I felt from the vendor side, who I got to kind of connect with and like talk a little bit more with, they were frustrated, certainly. They didn't go there to rotate their inventory. They don't This is the show. Like they don't take this inventory and go somewhere bigger to sell. I mean, maybe the national, but that's almost 2 months away. Like they need to rotate with cash. They need to make money. They need to make profit that's liquid. And for them to just have one card that's Kobe auto and then switch it into, I don't know, like a LeBron auto or something, it doesn't mean much for them, like realistically, right? And so I sense some frustration. So from a vendor side too, I'm sure unless you're like truly hustling 24 hours and you're like buying something for 19,000, selling it for 19.5, and then like doing that, I think it was a tough event for most vendors as well. And I think some of them were very vocal on Instagram post show of how this was a very disappointing time. It was a great time meeting people, but in terms of just sales, it was a very disappointing weekend. And I feel them. I feel for them certainly.
Yeah, I wonder what that means for the future because like it seems like there's more and more of these bigger shows popping up left and right. Like you have Dallas every quarter. There's the new Atlanta show. The Dells just had their thing, and I don't know how frequent that's supposed to be. The Nationals looming. It's going to be. I feel like the Nationals going to have a very interesting vibe because we'll have. Isn't the next Dallas show like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the National? I
That's
think.
right. So yeah, Dallas card shows every 2 months, I believe. So
Yeah, so that would put it at right before the next National. So I wonder how many
mhm,
people will wonder if it starts affecting like how many people start setting up with these shows, like the big ones, like the really big ones,
mhm.
and they stick to more regional to cut costs on like travel and stuff like that. Once again, I've never been on that side of the table, so I don't know, what that life is like, or what kind of balancing the books on that stuff. But that's it's in a weird place right now, a really weird place. So, like you going to the show personally, like, did you have were you looking for something specific, or like looking to move off something, or looking to switch out something for something?
Yeah, so personal kind of goal, or strategy going into the weekend was to, liquidate actually some of my higher end cards into, more lower end slabs. And, this is kind of opposite of a lot of the direction that people go towards where you wanna constantly upgrade your card to a higher end card. But I felt too leveraged, at the higher end card, and higher end here I'm defining as above 50K in card value, that it's actually very tough to sell those cards in an in-person transaction. Like I would probably have to send it into either PWCC or Golden to do that kind of stuff. So I wanted to test out before sending it in to those platforms if I can do like a trade deal where I can maybe get like a 25K or 30K card and a 20K cash deal for, let's say, a 50K card that I have. But and one thing to know, as you know, I'm a big LeBron collector, so most of my higher end cards are in LeBron rookie cards, and so I wanted to liquidate some of that and downgrade to some of the lower cards, but I was not successful in doing that actually. And what I ended up doing was doing trades where I get more LeBron cards. So I was trying to liquidate out of LeBron, reduce exposure on LeBron, but I ended up getting LeBron cards because, as a basketball collector and as a LeBron fan, I just couldn't find any other cards that I felt like was safer than LeBron. And, most of the dealers are coming to me and saying, I'm up for a trade plus cash for a card. And so when I look at their, table, all I see is LeBron. Like I'm not gonna go switch my LeBron out for like a Kevin Durant. I mean, I love KD as well,
Yeah.
but it's just different level, right, of security and like assurance. So I just picked up more LeBron, which was definitely opposite of what I'd expected, but I'm okay with that. But my initial goal of trying to downgrade to lower tier, lower end cards was unsuccessful because dealers weren't going to pay me 50K, 70K in cash, certainly, which I felt like were below comps to begin with, but they just didn't have the cash for it.
Yeah, everyone, and this is no offense to any of the content creators out there. Some of them make it look, Sasha T makes it look really easy to sell a
But he's
50K
good.
card.
He's a good, like
Yeah,
seller and buyer, but
he specifically, but like I think people look at that and they're like, oh, like you just go to Dallas and there's just people selling 50K cards all over the place. And I'm sure that there's a little segment of that, but he has the connections to be able to make that stuff look easier than probably what it actually is to try to do
yeah,
that in reality.
it's days of work in advance. Like, they work out these deals before they get to Dallas. That's what I think people don't understand, is you don't go to Dallas with your cards and spend 72 hours trying to move your cards. It's a week before at least, people are DMing, people are, having that conversation, like, bring that card, I'll bring that much cash. And then the deal actually happens in Dallas. But yeah, like, I mean, I talk to Sasha here and there, and he's a machine, like he's constantly working. and it's just a fruition of that. But yeah, I can tell like from videos, people may be mistaken, like you just walk around with your card and people pay up for it. That's actually not the case.
I don't play anywhere near that level, but even just moving like $1,000 PSA 10 select Luca isn't necessarily the easiest thing in the world. I mean, depending
Wow.
on where you live, like you being out in California, like you have like relative access to like Burbank, Melrose, stuff like that.
Right.
Like I have some shops like that, but and like I have some local shows and stuff like that. But there's times, I don't have anything even near to what you have collection value wise. But like there's times that I go to some local shows and I walk around and I'm just like, I have nicer stuff than most of the vendors here. Like, is someone
Exactly.
really going to be willing to spend even a couple $1,000s on just, not even like high end Luca, just like mid grade stuff? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
even selling that stuff's hard, let alone trying to move even like a LeBron Chrome PSA 10, which is a fairly liquid card. But,
Yeah.
when you're throwing around those
Exactly.
numbers, you guys make it look easier with your card show vlogs and stuff. But I imagine it's
It's
much
all
more
edited,
difficult.
everyone. It's, edited. We cut out, like, all the negotiation part, all the, conversation and show the good parts, certainly, but, yeah, it's tough work, a lot of negotiation tactics to be used, and actually, you mentioned Luca, which is interesting. I would say, like, even like 2 Dallas card shows ago, you saw so many people with Luka cards, wanting Luka cards, buying Luka, selling Luka. I mean, he was the like person to buy, especially in Dallas, right? Huge Dallas Mavericks fans out there. But I saw zero Luka. It is absolutely insane. Like
Now,
how, yeah,
I'm trying to remember the timing of the Dallas show. So they won their first game on Saturday night. So that was only like
yeah,
halfway through the show.
yeah.
And for the audience's sake, we were recording this prior to their Tuesday game, and the Lakers have not played yet either. So if anything happens during Tuesday night playoffs, that's absolutely wild. And you're like, oh my God, how come they're not talking about Luca dropping 60? We don't know about it yet.
Man,
To me, like personally, Luca, Mahomes, and LeBron are like the three guys that I'm like, okay, let's just let this stuff keep falling, and like it's gonna reach a certain point where I'm gonna pounce on some nothing
yeah,
crazy high end, but even just like Mahomes optic PSA 10s. Like
right.
I was looking at something today online before we hopped on, and I think some of those went for like 15, 1600 ish, which is the lowest that's been in a long time. I
That's crazy.
saw, PWCC ended all those Luca based prisms. Not that I would necessarily go for a base prism, but they dropped down to like 800. Now they spiked back up again, but
Yeah, that's
if they win, I think they actually are going to beat the Clippers. Then I have to imagine his stuff gets a boost, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like Saturday, I mean, who expected Mavs to beat the Clippers on game 1 at home? Like no one. I mean, I didn't. I certainly didn't. And I'm not a
I did
Clippers
a
fan.
little
I'm like,
bit, just a little bit,
"Oh, you did? Okay. Okay,
just
maybe
a
the
little
Luka
bit.
rumors."
My general theory is Clippers are going to Clipper until they prove me that they're not going to.
That's valid. But in general, right? Like when you have those moments where the performance far exceeds expectation. We see that in card prices like moments after the game. But even at a show that was held in Dallas, I didn't see Luka cards being rotated Sunday morning. So that was very interesting and something to note. Like I did discuss this with a friend after the show at the airport. It's like okay, we're saying that Luca base dropped to $800. Like everyone's panicking. Like these used to be what, like 1,500, 1,400 at one point. Everyone's panicking. But when we go back to like exactly a year ago, like April, May of 2020, these cards were going for $400, right? And so
Mhm.
800 sounds low for those who got in at 1,500. Absolutely. Like, and I feel for them. But that's with like any kind of investing, like I think outlook is that doubling in a year is unheard of, like, outside of sports cards and cryptocurrency, and I think that's why you have a lot of healthy skepticism coming from, established investors like Warren Buffett, like, things like that, like, where they just think that this is a bubble. It very well could be, but even if it's not, let's say Luka's base goes down to $600 this summer, we're still up 50% from last year. I wouldn't call that a crash necessarily, but a healthy correction of things. And of course, like it sucks if you got in at 1,500 for sure. But hopefully that would be a learning lesson for you, and hopefully you didn't buy 10 of them, but you just bought one of it,
Yeah.
and take that loss and take it as a learning lesson. But yeah, it's I can't think of a card that dropped like even LeBron, like 20K, absolutely crazy. Like that's where it was last year. But yeah, last summer it was at 10K. The summer before it was at 5K. And so we're already doubled from last summer, erasing out like the height that it went to at like 43K. We're still up, 100% year on year. Is that something to be complaining about? It's just like the perspective I like to take, and kind of, going away from that attitude of like, I need this to double within 2 days or it's not a good investment, right? So,
Yeah, my general theory, and I said it in a video that I posted Tuesday morning, is I think like I think we still have a ways to go. Like, I don't think we're at the bottom yet for a lot of stuff.
mhm,
Um, I think that this summer is going to be like the reset point, and then like
definitely.
around the national probably is probably where it
Mhm,
kind of resets, and we say, okay, here's the new baseline, and now let's get back into the more normal cyclical cycles that we see in the card market with the reset expectations and price points, et cetera. I mean, things did get too high. And to your
mhm,
point about like playoff performances and spiking prices, like I noticed like and Trey Young stuff went up,
yeah,
but it went up like 15-20%, which to me
right.
feels normal. I think if this
Mhm,
was like if you just go back to the beginning of the bubble last year, like not the market bubble, the NBA bubble, like the playoffs,
yeah.
if that same thing happened last year during the playoffs when the card market was nuts, I feel like, Trey going off in the garden, I feel like his stuff would like double overnight last year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure. For
And now
sure.
like just
Yeah,
a 20% bump feels like, okay, 15-20% bump off them winning a game. That feels right. Like that seems fine. I don't know that it needs to 10x overnight.
exactly. Yeah.
And to me, a lot of the easy money is gone. Like, the easy money is gone. Like, you're not
Mhm,
submitting base cards for $20 and 10xing your money anymore. You're not. Everything's just not going up anymore. You know,
exactly.
6 months ago, you could
Yeah.
buy literally anything and look like a genius.
I like to say, like, the pilgrim days are over where we just came and grabbed land and, called it ours. Like, those days are gone. It's smarter people in, a lot more veterans in, and so I think we'll see, like, card prices doubling overnight like we did, last year, certainly.
Yeah, this is like the Oregon Trail days now, where we're fighting off like
Yeah.
dysentery and stuff as we're crossing
Exactly.
going down the river. So, we'll kind of wrap up on a couple things here. So, first Dallas show, would you go again? Like, are you planning on going in 2 months, or are you going to hold off because it's so close to the national?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna only try to attend the national in July. There's no real reason for me to go to both shows. Um, and I don't think it's impacted by like sort of the general atmosphere that I felt from May, from this show, but it's more so they're so close to each other. I have
Mhm.
other commitments, so it'll be tough to travel to the east side that frequently in a month. So and I wonder if that'll be shared sentiment among, some of the other collectors as well. I'm sure vendors side, it doesn't hurt them to go to both shows and do some rotation of their, inventory, but from a buyer perspective or just walking around, I think national will be enough, for me for July, for a 5-day event, so, yeah. And I'll see you
Yeah,
there,
I'll,
right?
I'll be very curious how the next Dallas show looks because I believe it's the same weekend as the Atlanta show that's trying to get off the ground,
I see.
and it's 2 weeks before the national. So like
Yeah,
you have all these, like you said, certain people they might get to go. They budget to make their one card trip every couple months or whatever. To be able to pull that off twice in a month is probably a steep ask for most people.
right.
So I'll be curious to see what the next Dallas show looks like, and if it'll just kind of be like a lower key with everyone
Mhm.
kind of gearing up for the national. Plus, like, I don't know, this is just me. If I have 10K to spend on cards, am I going to blow that at Dallas if I'm planning on going to the national in 2 weeks?
Exactly,
I don't know.
exactly. Um, yeah, and like another show that I would I know about is it's in Houston, Texas. I think it's called TriStar Show, and it's happening in June. I think first week of June, first weekend of June. And I actually heard a lot of people not attending this May Dallas show so that they can go to the TriStar show in Houston, Texas, first week of June. You know, why you don't wanna be in Texas 2 weekends in a row, I guess, and I I don't blame them for it. But yeah, apparently it's gonna be a big show as well, hosted by some of the veterans in the industry. So I wonder if that's gonna be a repeated show as well, where they may host sometime in August again. Who knows? But there's just so many big, big shows, like 400, 500 table shows, which is absolutely insane.
Do you think that reaches like a saturation point though at some point? Like we just talked about, there's only so much money out there, and there's only so much money people have to inject into the system. And sure, from our perspective, just to go hang out for the night, do trade nights or whatever, that's fine. But you think on the vendor side, your customer base is only so big, and there's only so much cash coming in. And I guess if you're hitting different parts of the country, you're probably pulling from different pools of people. But I wonder if there becomes like an oversaturation of like these, I don't want to, I guess, mega show for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like when I talk to people, you know, like being a content creator and being on YouTube, I'm sure you get a ton of message of like people just asking for your opinion on things or whatever. And the first question I ask is, how long have you been collecting for? How long have you been doing this? And the overwhelming majority response I get is 6 months to a year. Like that is the sweet spot. I haven't actually met someone so far who's like in the last 3 months who said, "This is something new for me." So that gets me, and I have a small sample of, you know, those collectors out there, obviously, but at least from that sample size, my understanding is, yeah, like there's not as many people coming into the hobby as we did like 6 months ago, a year and a half ago, right? And so definitely not as much new entries into the market versus the overwhelming increase of avenues to do trades and deals, like it just can't keep up. I think with the influx right now, and you know I think I saw this somewhere where someone mentioned like having these local shows. Like people go to shows to make good deals, right? To get a good deal, both on a buyer and vendor side. And the general, you know, like deal structure goes like, and this is like a template, right? Like, oh, I want to pay 90% of comp because you get to avoid eBay fees. I get to avoid eBay fees. I don't have to ship it to you. Let's do this 90% deal. And that's like best case. A lot of times people offer 80%. And so what does that do to the market? Like is the number that you see on market movers, card ladder on 130 points, is that even relevant anymore? Right? Or is it more of a, hey, like what that says is for those people who can't go to shows. We're at a show right now and I want 90%, 85%. So I think there could be some manipulation of price points as well as we see more shows come up in person. And so certainly saturation is happening in shows, but I think overall it's a good thing for the hobby because that in-person experience is what gets people hooked into the hobby and continue that hobby as well. Because it's not just you on the screen, right? And I know
Mhm.
some people just, you know, like to stick it like that, and that's totally fine. But the in-person, like the community building, like, you know, kind of like having that in-person, you know, experience is what makes you stick around. So I think overall net net it will be good in sustaining the hobby and the industry, but in terms of like cash flow and like new money coming in, I don't think it'll be like a big attribution to that. I would say.
Interesting. So we'll end on this. The National will be my first show of that magnitude. So you've obviously done Dallas now once. So like, what is like one or two things that you would be like, okay, I didn't realize this going in. I should have done X, Y, or Z. Whether it's as simple as like more comfortable shoes and extra bottles of water, or something way more advanced than that.
um, Yeah, that's a very good question. I think first one is stay hydrated because you're like before you know it, you're in the showroom for like 6, 7 hours and you start to feel dizzy. Like you forgot to drink water, you forgot to eat. So busy, like just trying to connect and like make deals. So definitely stay hydrated as much as you can. And it's July in Chicago, so I'm sure it's like humid and hot. And secondly, and this is specifically around like just strategically, like in moving cards. I got into Dallas again on Friday, which is the second day of the show. I am going to try to get to the national on the very first day. And why I say that is good cards go fast. And it's like cliche, but good cards go fast. And I want to be able to, at least be in the market, be there physically when those good cards are there versus, the card has already gone up 20% the next day because somebody got a good deal on it yesterday and having to pay that 20% premium just because I flew in a day later. I don't think that's the position I want to get into again. And so, certainly, if you can, get out there on Wednesday and try to make some good deals on the first day.
I won't be there till Thursday, so I'm already losing. I'm already losing. I'm already taking an L. I haven't even left yet.
Um,
Hannah, where can people find you if they want to check you out on YouTube? I know you got a couple different YouTube channels that you're on, plus IG, whatever you want to toss out there. However, people can find you if they want to check out your content.
Sure, yeah. I'm on YouTube. You can look for She Collects Cards. I run my own channel, video it myself, edit it myself, content strategy all by myself. So it's a one-man shop. And then I also have Woman of the Hobby with Sam, where we invite guests onto our show every other week to talk about the hobby and kind of raise awareness of all the female collectors in the hobby. And I'm also on Instagram, SheCollectsCards. So if you have any questions about anything, feel free to DM me and I'm happy to engage with you. So, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
And I'll link to all the different channels and IGs and stuff in the description for the video, so you guys and girls can find that in the links down below. So that's all I have. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I'll take a peek at them. And maybe Hannah will stop by and answer any questions in the comments too.
will
So
do.
that's all I have for you guys and girls. We will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.